stories fade with time, buried beneath silence, lost in forgotten files, or dismissed as mysteries that will never be solved. But behind every case is a voice that was never heard, a truth still waiting in the dark. This channel is dedicated to the victims, the unanswered questions, and the stories that refuse to disappear. Because somewhere, someone still knows what happened. Welcome to Cries, Unheard in the Darkness. On August 27, 1992, the eyes of the United States were fixed on the devastating path of Hurricane Andrew. But in Tupelo, Mississippi, a different kind of storm was brewing, one that would leave a family shattered, and a mystery that remains unsolved more than 30 years later. 13-year-old Leigh Occhi was home alone, waiting for the rain to stop so she could attend a school open house with her grandmother. By 9 a.m., she had vanished. She didn't leave behind a note or signs of a struggle at the door. All she left behind was her blood. Leigh lived at 105 Honey Locust Drive with her mother, Vicki Felton. It was a normal Thursday morning. Vicki left for work at approximately 8 a.m., leaving Leigh asleep. Shortly after arriving at her office, Vicki heard that the remnants of Hurricane Andrew were heading toward Tupelo. Like any worried parent, she called home to check on Leigh, but got no answer. Vicki didn't wait. She drove the mile-and-a-half back to the house. When she pulled into the driveway, the garage door was open and the lights were on. Inside, the silence was deafening. Vicki walked in and saw blood smeared on the wall. She began frantically calling Leigh's name, moving from room to room. When she reached Leigh's bedroom, she found her daughter's favorite blanket crumpled on the floor. Leigh was gone. When law enforcement arrived, the scene was chilling. This wasn't just a small injury. There were pools of blood in Leigh's upstairs bedroom. Significant smears were found in the hallway, the bathroom, and on her bedroom door. But there was something even more disturbing. In the bathroom, detectives found evidence that someone had tried to clean up. In the laundry hamper, they discovered Leigh's nightgown, soaked in blood. Tupelo Police Chief Bart Aguirre would later note a grim detail. The way the blood had dripped onto the nightgown suggested that the injury had to be above the neck. Despite the violence of the scene, there were no signs of forced entry. Whoever did this was either let in by Leigh or already had a key. The search for Leigh was immediate and extensive, but the woods of Tupelo yielded nothing. Then, on September 9th, nearly 2 weeks after she vanished, the case took a bizarre, cinematic turn. A package arrived at the home on Honey Locust Drive. It was addressed to Leigh's ex-stepfather, Barney Yarborough. Inside the box were Leigh's eyeglasses. Detectives called it a ruse, a distraction meant to throw them off the trail. The FBI performed DNA testing on the stamps, with hopes to find saliva to identify the sender. The results showed that the sender had used water to adhere the stamps. They were careful. They were calculated. Naturally, the investigation turned inward. Barney Yarborough, the ex-stepfather, was a person of interest due to rumors of a strained relationship. However, he provided a substantiated alibi and passed a polygraph. He was ruled out. Then, the spotlight turned to Leigh's mother, Vicki Felton. While Vicki has always maintained her innocence, the FBI administered 3 separate polygraph examinations. According to independent examiners, she showed signs of deception on all of them. In 2017, Chief Aguirre stated publicly that she could not be eliminated as a person of interest, questioning why she returned home so soon after leaving. Vicki, however, points the finger elsewhere. She believes the culprit is Oscar McKinley, Mike Kearns, a convicted kidnapper who was active in the area and abducted another girl just 9 months after Leigh disappeared. In November 1993, a year after the disappearance, it seemed the mystery was over. A human skull was found by a farmer in a soybean field in nearby Monroe County. A coroner initially confirmed it was Leigh via dental records. But the hope was short-lived. The identification was retracted days later. Forensic testing proved the skull actually belonged to 27-year-old Pollyanna Sue Keith, who had gone missing the following spring. Leigh's father, Donald Occhi, who was stationed in Virginia at the time of the disappearance, has spent decades in a state of grief-stricken limbo. His belief is simple and heartbreaking. Some bastard beat that child to death in that house. For years, the case went cold, but the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation hasn't given up. As recently as January 2025, the MBI Cold Case Unit, Tupelo Police, and the FBI conducted a fresh search near Leigh's former home. Authorities have remained tight-lipped, saying only that findings cannot be disclosed at this time, but that they remain committed to following every lead. Who mailed the glasses? Why was the house cleaned? And how does a 13-year-old girl vanish into thin air during a storm without a single witness? Leigh Occhi would be in her mid-40s today. Her case remains a haunting reminder that sometimes the most terrifying storms aren't the ones on the weather radar. They're the ones happening behind closed doors. If you have any information regarding this case, please contact the Tupelo Police Department or the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation. Thanks for listening to Cries, Unheard in the Darkness. If this story stayed with you, you're not alone. Like and subscribe, because the darkness always has more to say. Until next time, listen carefully.